Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, Friday afternoon, 3 p.m. and every Friday for Common Grounds of Self-Determination, our weekly podcast. We're up on, I think, what is this, episode 26 or 27?
Yeah,
We're
episode
we're moving.
26, I
We're
believe, man. It's
creeping. Yeah, we're
crazy.
creeping. We're
It's
creeping.
crazy.
Yep,
So we creep.
that's right.
Yeah. We got
That's
all
right.
kinds of music today, man.
Let's do it.
What's up, man?
Thank you for thanks for being here. I think Dr. Cole is traveling today, so it'll be the Omar and David show. We'll do our best to entertain everyone. Let's see.
Is
Let's make sure everything's
is
working. Everything is working. All right. If you are tuning in and listening to this now, please go ahead and do us a favor and like and share. We should have ample time to get into discussion today with our followers. So make sure that the comments are active. And we got a great show for you today. But before we do that, I want to check in with Omar Yanar, all the way from Texas. How are you doing? How's your week been?
from El Paso, Texas, man.
Yeah.
It's been for all those out there who are dealing with the time change, it's been a weird ass week.
Yeah.
We had a time change. The weather was a little weird in El Paso. It was kind of dark and stormy. So it was kind of like, ooh, it's like the advent of like a gothy kind of fall. And then, Tuesday comes along, it's sunny, it's beautiful, and everyone's feeling like, oh, we got out of this kind of upside down world. They felt a little bit like a alternate reality on Monday. And I think everyone's just been super exhausted. So by Friday, I think we're all going to be super relieved to not only get to the weekend, not only have a chalita, which I believe the Beard of Knowledge, Mr. David Castillo is already having. But I just want to give a quick shout out to our leader, our co-host, Dr. Charles Cole, who I think he may be in St. Louis, which has inspired me to sing the Nelly song, like you can find me in St. Louis, where they're gonna play and rain all day. And he's just laughing. He's in some kind of limousine right now, I believe. Like, he's not on the video. He can pop and just say hello, so I can see a small screen of him like sipping Santana champ in the back of some limousine, like living
That's
it
true.
up on the west side. I'm assuming he'll pop in at some point and say hello,
Sure.
which would
Yeah.
be lovely. And
Yep.
David, you don't look like you're home.
We are not home. That's right. Yeah, we took advantage of the 4-day weekend. My son's school, they were off yesterday for Veterans Day and off today again. So made sense to get out of town. And we're up in beautiful Big Bear Lake, California. So just outside of the madness of Los Angeles, enjoying some fresh air and like, feeling the lack of oxygen to my lungs. So if I pass out at any point during this podcast, just keep going, Omar. Okay, I might just fall over.
I mean, that's going to be a weird ass situation, but I promise
Yeah,
to keep it going
you
for
can do it.
the viewers. I think
Right on.
Charles wants to jump in to say hello.
Yeah,
Charles, Dr.
he's got
Charles
control. He's
Coleman,
got
jump in.
control. So when he's ready, he can do it. Yeah.
He
Okay.
does
Here we
not have
go. Here we
access.
go.
I
Here we
gotta
go.
bring
Here
him
we
in.
go.
Ready?
He's
1,
in. He's
2, 3.
in. Bam.
He's
There
in.
we
He's
go.
in.
Hi, hey fellas, how y'all doing?
All right. How we
Can you hear
doing?
me?
Yeah.
Man, it has
Are you okay,
been.
man? Are you a hostage? What's going on, man? We gotta call somebody.
It is. I'm definitely not a hostage. It has been the flight day from hell. Basically, it was a quick little trip to Kansas City. It's an hour and some change from Chicago, but something happened in the sky, and the something wouldn't open or something, and we got rerouted to St. Louis, and then got delayed again. So I just got to Kansas City, so I'm not in St. Louis. But I had planned this so I could be in the hotel room and be set up with lights and do the show with y'all with the topics. But that's traveling in the Midwest, man.
Yep. Well, you're here now, so we're thankful that you're able to pop in.
I am. Well, I can't be in the whole time because there's other people in the car too. But I
Yeah.
did want to at least show my face and say what's up to y'all, man. It's very sunny and nice where y'all are at. That is not the case here, but I'm a little jealous of it, man. But I know it's gonna be a dope show. I'm gonna be listening in, and if I do get settled before it's over, I'll try to pop back on.
Sounds great.
That's awesome. And do you want to show everybody else in the car just to make them feel uncomfortable?
I mean, I don't know if these, do you brothers want to be shown on the? I just met these brothers just now. So we have a car service, but like, you know, I got delayed 2 hours, so I'm kind of imposing on their car service. So sorry, fellas. Y'all want to wave to the people, man? Here, there they go. There we go. So,
what up? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Man,
but they
that
was
is
very nice,
funny as
and
hell.
and I know that they want to get back to having their conversations and stuff, man. So let me I'm gonna hop off, but I'm gonna be listening in. I'll try to comment, and like I said, if I get settled beforehand, I'll try to hop back in. But y'all
Cool.
go kill that thing, man.
Awesome.
All right. Safe travels. All right.
We got
Yes,
you, man.
sir.
We got you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right, bro.
Cool. All right. That was cool. Little cameo. All right. So today's topic is a relevant one. It's something that a lot of people are talking about right now in this moment. We're going to talk about two things today on today's show. We're going to talk about emerging from the pandemic, right? So we've talked about this before. We know what's happening out there. Schools are open again. And the big question is, you know, especially for the students that we talk about on the show, Black and brown children, prior to the pandemic, for the past 20 years, the education system has not served Black and brown children, period, right? Pre-COVID. We also know that the current model of education, for the most part, I would say probably 95% of schools, not much has changed over the past 100 years, right? It's fascinating, man. It's like there's so much innovation and creativity and in so many different sectors and spaces. And in education, we're like, for some reason, we're like stuck, right? There's a whole lot of reasons for that. However, emerging from this pandemic, you know, there was it was inevitable that the education system and the patterns and our ways of doing the work, it was you know, forced disruption, right? And so now the question is, like, do we go back to doing what we have historically done, or is this an opportunity that we should take advantage of to actually try to do things differently? That's the first part that we're going to talk about. And then I also want to call out, and we'll get to this, you know, towards the second half of the show, is like innovation in schools, disrupting, you know, particular patterns in schools, changing the paradigm, you know, thinking differently about even the meaning of school and how and where it happens is not new, right? I mean, there's you know, we can look back to the 60s and 70s and see evidence of like some pretty like far out, man, you know, school reforms or different types of schools. And even today, prior to this pandemic, we have schools like El Paso Leadership Academy that is doing education, doing schooling very different. I was one of my previous head of school roles was at a public charter school in Oakland, California. It was a very innovative model. It was a Montessori program that also was anchored in arts integration, right, and social emotional learning and design thinking. And so, like, innovation has you know, people, organizations have done innovation. It's just like, how does it take, and then, you know, what does that actually look like in the big, broader sector? Talking specifically about like school districts. So, transformation in education today, like, is this the moment? Is it not the moment? I think I want to start there and just get your quick take, Omar, on, and I know for you, you've been doing this work, this innovative work, this innovative, like, culturally responsive model. And so the pandemic happened. The pandemic is, we're coming out of it, and you're still, you know, you're hammering away. You probably changed some things. But like, what is your take on that? Like, what is your take on like this moment? Is this the time to do it? What are some of the roadblocks? Just before we dive in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm straight up diving in already,
Hmm.
but I think three things. One, the moment was 50 years ago. The moment was 60 years ago. The
Hmm.
moment was 70 years ago. Now, if people need this incredibly alarming scenario to happen to them in order for them to be like, oh, wow, like the world is changing, maybe that we should adapt and change too. Like, hey, way to catch up, because this has been needed for so long. And look, to our listeners and so forth, I was incredibly excited to start the El Paso Leadership Academy, and I wanted to be on record. I want folks to know that I think the reason David and I get along so well, the reason I have a crazy amount of respect for David, is that I think we see eye to eye on this, in that we do things because we have a ludicrous sense of urgency to provide for our community where we didn't see people providing for us. Same with the doc. A lot of people get into the charter game for money. A lot, dude. A lot of get in for prestige, which is, I'm like, prestige, homeboy. I was literally mopping up shit. Literally.
Yeah.
When I
Yeah.
mean literally, folks, I mean the actual literal sense of the word, literally mopping up shit because we couldn't afford custodians in our first year. And like, I don't know how glorious that is, but like, that's the work. And I mean that in to say, I saw the sense of urgency and I didn't see anyone doing a damn thing about it on a systemic level other than a couple charter leaders here and there and some really badass administrators like David across the country. So yeah, fuck yeah. Like this, the time was a while ago. I think just to kind of stem into the conversation of like roadblocks, here's my worry, David. The time for change was decades ago.
Hmm.
This is a really wonderful time for people to change. My worry spans into two different branches. The first is people are going to be like, oh, things are getting back to normal. So business as usual. Like, we got over this, people getting vaccinated. Let's just go back to business as usual, which is a huge
Yeah.
worry of mine. The other worry is that you will have an impetus for being like, we should change. We should evolve. We should truly develop something radically different for education other than just using Zoom. But then the roadblocks that school districts are going to pose in terms of like, well, we don't know how to do that. And we're not really that innovative. And we're like, why do we need to go through all this trouble of doing this? And this is going to cost us this amount of money and need this amount of training.
Yep.
You need exceptional leadership, and not only at the district level, but really on a school level, at a principal level, to basically say, this is the direction that we're going to go in, do or die. So,
Yep.
David, I want to kind of launch it back to you in terms of that, because I think you've had experience both in the charter realm and in the district realm. Like, what do you think about those potential roadblocks of, I think, the kind of districts being like, hey, man, it's business as usual?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, the human capital piece is definitely is huge. I think in this moment too, where it's like we had school districts across the country that had to shut down today that were scheduled to do school today, but they couldn't staff their schools, and they're no subs. So, I mean, we're talking about a significant, major uh, staffing issue that we're facing across the country, and that also, you know, um, we're looking at school leaders too. And so I do think like doing transformative, really innovative, out of the box um, thinking and then applying that in an education setting does require a particular like skill set, a leadership skill set that is, part probably just like what you're born with, and then part, nurtured through training and work that you do to develop as a leader over time. But it's hard. It is very hard work. Because oftentimes you're operating without a roadmap, right? And so you're taking risks, you're failing here, you're trying this, you're trying that. And so I think in this moment, you know, what the comfort spot for a lot of people is like, let's just go back to normal, right? Because we know
Yeah,
that it's
absolutely.
comfortable. We've done that before. We can do it again, and I understand that too. But I do think in this particular moment, um, with education, there's an opportunity, and I don't think that window's going to be open very long, Omar. I think, you know, next year, the year after, you know, once most of these federal dollars dry up, you know, whatever people are locked into, that's what you're going to be doing, right? You know, until the next disruption, right?
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
yeah, the staffing piece is
And
definitely, yeah. Go ahead.
I want to kind of ask you a serious question. So you had, I love that that voicemail tone just got chimed onto a live broadcast. Yep, that was Zelda. Everybody, I'm gonna turn these sounds off.
Yeah,
Um,
you're outing yourself, man.
I read the, I know, man. I read the article that you sent me, and it had these like 3 recommendations about what should
Yeah,
happen, right? And it was
yep,
basically like you need to go holistic and teach the whole child and get the social emotional learning. We need to get into more personalization. And then I think the third one was like, can't remember correctly, but it was like skill set building.
mhm,
And not to knock the author, because I would need, I don't want to make an assumption about a quick article that they wrote.
yep,
I think my comment and then my question is like, no shit. Like,
yeah,
been doing it for 7 years, and we've been developing these things for, you know, almost a decade. You've been doing this work. I think the quick question to you is, you get 3 recommendations like that, and I bet someone's going to read it and be like, okay, cool, those are really great recommendations. How in the hell do I do it? So I think my major question is like, yes, a transformation needs to take place. Yes, EPLA is a transformative place. Your school in Oakland was a transformative place. Who's got the skill set and who's teaching people on how to actually implement these programs? Because I'll tell you what, I clicked on that link for, I think it was like the organization called Transcend, that was
yep,
like is coaching all these schools on how to do this. And I was looking through their coaching model and I was like, this is so basic that we're light years ahead of these people. But I'm wondering, is that where people need to start?
yeah,
Because they're not doing jack shit. Maybe we're lucky
yeah,
and we're light years ahead. So I want to just get your hot take on like, how are people going to figure out how to do this and how to
yeah.
implement it successfully?
That's a great segue here. Okay, so for the listeners, what we're talking about today, you know, big picture is grappling with the question of whether this is the moment to transform education, public education, coming out of the pandemic. Um, so we're talking about a USA Today piece that was put out by the folks at Transcend, not endorsing it, but it's interesting. I agree with you. Educate the whole child, number one, right? So like social emotional learning. Hello, hey, all right. No tricks here. I'm gonna pull a rabbit out of a hat. Empower students to lead their own learning, right? So like student choice, more like student directed learning as opposed to teacher directed learning. Um, and the third was thinking outside of the classroom box. So like where learning happens, how it happens, who it happens with. Everyone just got a big wake up call with you know, virtual learning, right? So virtual learning's over here, traditional learning is here. What exists in the middle, right? Hybrid, whatever you want to call it. Even within a school building, even within a classroom, you know, the basic concept of like doing, you know, groupings and, you know, mixing grades and things like that, right? I mean, it might sound crazy to some people, and to some you're like, yeah, we've done that for 15 years or whatever. So those are the 3 points that they put forward in this USA Today piece. And going back to what you said earlier, um, I agree with you. I think there are schools, there are leaders, there are organizations and networks that have been pushing this work, pushing the envelope for 20, maybe even 30 years, right? not necessarily new things. Look at El Paso Leadership Academy. When I was a leader at in Oakland at Urban Montessori, we were a next generation learning school, right? We were doing like next gen assessment, next gen learning, student agency. We were doing some pretty far out stuff with very young kids, and it was working. Like the standardized outcomes showed benefit, right? That you always have to check that. Um, and so some people are more advanced, and then you have big traditional school districts that are like, social emotional learning, or how do I change up my bell schedule, or we don't really know what that means to have students lead their own learning, right? That's what teachers do. They lead students, right? So I agree with you. It's like there's three big pillars in this piece. Some people are way ahead of it, saying like, hey, this is great, we've been doing it, catch up. And others are saying like, wow, this is new. So I think it means something different for everyone, right? And then like who's actually the question around like who's actually working with school districts and trying to promote this kind of work. It's a bunch of transcend like organizations probably, that are out there, not working with all the school districts. um, I live in San Diego County. You know how many districts there are in San Diego County?
I do
71.
not know.
71.
Damn.
You imagine
Damn.
working at the county office of education and saying like, okay, we're going to do this
Oh,
initiative. We're going to go personalized learning,
71. Good
and we got
Lord.
71 districts to work through. Right? It's just like that's crazy. So I think part of the problem is just how the systems are set up and the bureaucracy of it all. But those are the three kind of big pillars that they put forward in this piece. And so, yeah, I wanted to like, get your take on the three. Again, I'm just going to name them: whole child, educate, whole child. Why would you educate half a child? I don't know. Maybe a third of a child.
Maybe
Um,
educate a quarter of that kid, man.
yeah, today you're going to get an eighth. Empower students to lead their own learning. So student directed learning cultivates self-direction. This is the agency piece that Charles talks about. And then thinking outside of the box. So three pretty simple, pretty straightforward, probably to some people terrifying,
Yeah.
concepts, right?
Yeah.
And so focusing on the three, like what is your take on those? Like what has your experience been in any one of those three domains?
So, a couple things. One, let me just go ahead and make a pitch to the South Star Classroom Medium.com account. Come check us out on Medium.
That's what's up.
We're doing a ton of writing. I've left a ton of articles. David has, Charles has. I mean, you're talking about like free, high-level consulting support, free of charge, man. One of these days, I hope everyone's listening. The South Star Classroom, David, Charles, and I, we're going to be charging some money for this advice that we're just giving out free on the show and on Medium. So take advantage. The reason I'm pitching that out is because you just gave me a great idea. Like I will write about all three in the next few weeks. So please check in our medium.com account. I will absolutely go into some specific detail about how we actually go about doing that. Not just saying, oh, you should do this.
Yep.
My hot take is like, let me go on two bents, which is the first about the specifics of those, and then kind of what I see going on in the education world. So the specifics of those are like, dude, who's going to argue that? The question is the how. So when you talk about we should be doing holistic and social emotional learning, people talk about that shit all the time, but is there any program set up at your school in order to do that? What does that entail? How do you do that? And I can guarantee you that most schools haven't a clue on how or where to start with that. And my quick point of reference is, how well is that school organized to build meaningful relationships with kids? And what I mean by that is like, look, I went to like Moorhead Middle, I went to Franklin High. I don't think either of those schools were good at all. I had some exceptional teachers, The problem with it was that I was jumping classroom to classroom. Every teacher had a different set of rules, different set of expectations. It was confusing for kids, not enough time to build rapport, no advisory. If you have a school, like I taught at a place called Deer Park Middle in Austin, and for better or for worse, one of the things that this school got exceptionally well is they built these like small learning communities. So 125 kids had the exact same 4 to 5 teachers, and we were all in this like really cool little quad. We had these 4 portables out in the back, and they would just go literally like from little portable to portable. And what was kick ass is that I think this is the exact same system David's son is in right now at a San Diego school. When you've got 4 teachers who see the exact same kids, and those 4 teachers know the exact same kids and can talk about the exact same kids. Boy, you're not only developing really good relationships with these kids because you're seeing them left and right, and you're going into the other classrooms and they're coming into classrooms, and it develops this really cool community. But then when you have conversations with the teachers, they're like, oh yeah, I know this kid. What can we do for this child? What more can we do to develop this child's sense of well-being beyond just the academics? That's like right there, free advice. That is a micro step that any school on the planet
research backed as well. Research backed.
It's awesome. It was a great practice. Kudos to our principal Tony, who implemented that ideology. Give her major props for that. But that's just one example of like, dude, there are like the Paso Leadership Academy. And I'm assuming at your school, David, there was like 1,000 other examples of how we do social emotional learning. We're doing relational practices. It was called restorative justice. Now we're calling it, relational practices. These are strategies to develop the rapport between kid to kid, student to student. We know the name of every child. I know the name of every child at this school now. Like, ask me dude, like straight up, like if you ask a principal, you know the name of every kid at your school, they're like, I got 5,000 kids. I'm like, yeah, dude, exactly. And then you wonder why there's bullying. You wonder why like kids are upset. It's like, dude, you're lost in the anonymity. So like when you get into the complexities of social emotional learning, people don't have a clue. So that's just a quick hot take on that.
That's great. Let's stay on this whole child piece for a second, okay?
Yeah,
because I like that. That's good. You brought some good examples forward. I mean, I think it's a. I mean, again, the simple concept of having, in one school year, so in a particular grade year, having having core teachers work with kids. So like in middle school or in high school, somehow you work it out so kids see fewer teachers, right? And then if they have year over year, if you have a strong advisory system and good staff retention, when Omar comes back to school next year, we don't have to reinvent the support wheel for Omar. We know Omar because we taught him last year, or I'm his advisor, so I can work with teachers to help them understand how Omar best functions in this kind of setting, right? It's that relational piece, right? When you don't have that mentality of those systems in place, every year is like waking up with amnesia, right? You're just like, oh shit, we got to do this all over again with new strangers, right? New adults, new teachers. It's terrifying, man. So I think like whatever you want to call it, looping, just like somehow like trying to minimize the number of adults that are working with kids to start to create that sense of like community and awareness and trust, right? Period. I mean, it's an innovation. I mean, it's hard. It's probably hard to do in a big system, but if you don't do it, then kids literally just become a number, right?
Right.
And that's
David,
that's
like
problematic.
Let me ask you a quick question. Your kid's in a big system right now, but they're doing small learning communities, aren't they?
Yeah. So I mean, it's a really simple, and I appreciate it, and I wish they would do more. But at the same time, I know it's a middle school of 1,500 kids. In my opinion, it's too many kids. However, it works because they've adopted this like simple model of the campus is built in a way that supports a sixth grade center, a seventh grade center. You know, it's like every grade level has its own little area, right? And that's where the teachers are, and 80% of your classes are there. So if you're a sixth grader, most of your interactions happen there. When you're seventh, it's maybe 60-40, and when you're an eighth grader, it's probably like, you know, you're moving around a lot more. It's a natural progression, right? And so, you know, but it's also a minor, you know, tweak. I think it's hard for big systems, but for smaller systems and charter schools, I mean, that's like your worldview, right? That's how the world rotates. I think on the social emotional learning, this is a really interesting one because it's such a big topic now, and people are like, "What is it? What does it do? I don't even know." I mean, I'll give you an example of when I was at the TK8 Urban Montessori School. We adopted a curriculum. It was a social emotional curriculum. It was like, you know, we're not going to make one. We're going to go out and like shop and research, and we found a great curriculum. I'll name it. It doesn't matter. It's called Toolbox, right? It was like a Bay Area curriculum. And we adopted this curriculum because we saw they had these videos, these marketing videos of students that had the Toolbox curriculum, and now they were like young adults. And they were like, what I learned in middle school has helped me as a young adult, helped me to stay out of trouble, helped me to communicate, helped me to interact with others. I'm like, wow, that's powerful. You know, like people are like tearing up. So we researched it, and it's a social emotional curriculum. It's, you know, basically tools. It's like 12 tools. There's 12 tools in this curriculum, and the curriculum is teaching children how to, and adults, how to use these tools, right? So if Omar says something to me and it really like bugs me, but it's not a big deal, I'm going to use my garbage can tool. I'm going to put it in the garbage can, right? If Charles is like, you know, getting on my last nerve, and I feel like I'm going to, you know, do something crazy, get physical with them, I'm going to like use my taking space tool, right? And so you can imagine there's 12 tools. The children learn them. There's a grade level curriculum, so it gets more advanced with every grade level. But the best thing about it is that it provides a common language, going back to what you were saying earlier, Omar, a common language for adults in the school to discuss student needs and student behaviors and student interactions. You're not, you know, and when I go from Dr. Cole's class to Omar's class, they're not talking a different language. They're talking the same language, and it's more predictable for children, right? And that's really what it was. You know, it's social emotional learning curriculum. It didn't come first. It didn't come second. It is intertwined in the instructional day, right? So, you know, like I appreciate the fact that these people put forward the concept and people are talking about social emotional learning. But again, this is like it's not frustrating, but like it's there. There's curriculum out there. You can buy it. You know, you just have to, like any curriculum, it's only going to be effective if 100% of adults on your campus are utilizing it.
Right. And here's like, you know, I want to get back into this plan. So I don't want to side rail us because I want to get to points 2 and 3 of this, but I do want to mention that the problems and difficulties that I see, again, this comes back to leadership. So I'll mention 2 quick things. One, teachers are sick and tired of developing new plans every single year. So this is a constant thing that I hear from school districts and teachers, which is like, we just got this new silver bullet plan and we've only been doing it for a year or 2, and now you're going to replace it with this. Yeah. And the truth is that, yeah, they're absolutely right. It's like, I don't know if like the principal is just like, well, like people don't like it, so we're going to move away from it. Or the superintendent's like, oh, I got this new thing, so we're going to implement this. Like there's no consistency. So teachers are just bombarded with these like programs year after year after year. And then you don't even like finish the first program before you jump to the next. And I don't understand, like,
it's inhumane to teachers and students. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's the leader that either A, sucks, or B, doesn't have a backbone? Because like we implemented like relational practices here, and you know, there was like some teachers that set it off really well, and there were some other teachers that didn't. But it wasn't like, well, I guess this isn't working, so I guess we're going to move to the next. I was like, no, we're tripling down. We're going and we're coaching these teachers on how to do these processes. I'm going into the classroom and showing them exactly how it's done personally. We're going to do even more PD, and we're going to keep doubling down. And now, boom, 2-3 years later, it's in every single classroom. It's working exceptionally well. It is a foundational piece of our social emotional learning platform that is incredibly holistic. And it's the kind of thing that I'm like, dude, like, grow a fucking spine. Like, if you're gonna do a program that's excellent, then like double down on it and work on it. And you're like, oh, you don't understand, Omar, I can't force these teachers to do it. I'm like, word? I mean, like,
then what are we doing? What are we doing?
You can't force anyone to do anything, but word, like, aren't you the administrator? Like, you can't find ways of inspiring them to do it. You don't have to force it. Can you inspire them? Can you put it part of the rationale that you can see the incredible success that other teachers are having with this, and then have them visit other classrooms and see it? It's so easy to do it. The other is that, like, I will say this, and this one was like, this is like a funny ass moment, David. And I don't know if you've ever had this moment. This is like when I first got back to El Paso, and I was talking about all the things that we were doing at El Paso Leadership Academy and this, that, and the other. And I was pitching it to this like outside consortium that's supposed to be like, you know, providing support to schools here in El Paso, like sorta, not really. And one of the guys was like an EPISD school board member, which I got to tell you, dude, like, I was absolutely blown away by this guy's ludicrous inability to understand anything educationally, like anything. This dude, like, I mean, like, had no concept about educational concepts, or I mean, educational academic concepts, like just basic shit. I'm like, what the hell are you doing on the board, dude? And I was telling him all this stuff, and he's
like, dude, I used to buy my my horse feed from you, my hay from you, and now you're like on the school board.
now you're giving like horse tranquilizers for COVID.
You used to sell raspas on the street, dude. Now you're a school board member.
Dude, actually, I would take the raspa dealer 10 times out of 10 from this dumb motherfucker, dude. So I'm like talking about all these concepts, and he's like, it's because like you're in a charter school and you can do that. We're public schools, we can't do that. And I was like, one, yeah, you can. There's nothing that I'm doing that you can't do, because all this stuff is curricular. Like, there's not a law that says you can't do it. In fact, like, two, aren't you on the fucking school board? Like, you're the guy who can absolutely say, hey, superintendent, we should probably be doing some of these things. Now, I know that the school board's purview is not in an academic sense, but if
they just mainly vote on approved budgets that they don't understand.
But if you don't understand educational law and the basics of educational law and the basics of like, you can and can't do this, the hell are you doing on a school board? So this is what I'm getting at when it comes to leaders in positions, administrators, superintendents, even school board members, not having any comprehension about actually how to do these things, because they're so marred in the old school practices of administration that the difficulty of what we would call innovation, what we would call, I don't know, like transcendent practices, like, dude, those, they're not that difficult. And it's just, you need someone with a level of expertise to help you out. The problem is they're so fearful themselves that they don't want to implement it. So that's just my sidetrack. I don't know if you want to comment that before we jump on to number two. Either way, we can just jump right to number two.
Let's jump into just in the interest of time. I think this one is interesting because this is one of the other recommendations that came out of this piece, which is thinking outside of the classroom box. So, you know, again, here we're not necessarily talking about solely technology, but we could be talking about like workplace learning, We could be talking about, students going out and doing investigations in the field with supervision. And then we can be talking about the whole, world of what technology can do. And like, remember blended learning, right? Blended learning was like something that
Yeah.
was kind of big, and then everyone shunned it, and they're like, "Oh, it's inhumane."
Yeah. We're,
And then I'm like, "Fuck,
we're
everybody's
doing
on
it
Zoom
here.
now. Everybody's on Zoom. How you doing?"
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like maybe Sal Khan was right, the Khan Academy. And when prior to my experience at the Urban Montessori Charter School, when I was at Oakland Unity High School, um, we were constantly trying to think outside of the classroom box. We're tied to the schedule. It's a 6 period day. We have these kids, students are in their classroom. So what can we do within the classroom to provide, some sense of like personalization or flexibility? And so we went pretty hard into technology. We were I don't know if you know this. We at Oakland Unity High School, we were one of the year zero pilot schools for the Khan Academy for
No, I
their
didn't.
math
That's
program, right? And
badass.
we heard
Right
about
on,
it, and we
man.
were just like, oh, we got to get into this. And we had some connections, and yeah, we helped them build out their platform. That was kind of the partnership of being involved in that cohort, was like, you're going to give us feedback on the interface and everything. But yeah, kids could then do math, or teachers could assign work ahead of time. Teachers would do lectures, students would watch them come to class. Just try and like make sure that if you're going to be in class with your students, it's going to be meaningful instruction, right? Because we can like tweak X, Y, and Z. And then we always took students into the community for community service, for study trips. We didn't call them field trips. We would take them out, and we're studying World War II, right, in U.S. history. So we're going to go and see the Rosie the Riveter monument. We're going to go to Port Chicago, and talk about like racism during World War II, and the kinds of jobs that African Americans had, and the dangers that came along with it. We're going to get kids embedded into the community, right? We're going to do like experiential stuff. We're going to do an immigration project. We're going to ask you to interview a family member about their immigration story, whether it was from Louisiana to Oakland or Oaxaca to Oakland. And we're going to turn them into podcasts, and we're going to record them, right? And we're going to make it a really living thing. So thinking outside of the classroom box. um we were doing this 15 years ago, man, right? So
Yeah,
this is
dude.
not
Yeah,
like,
man.
this
Come
is
on. Come on.
not really a new thing, but it's something that people are thinking about now en masse with the pandemic and the disruption, and the role that technology could play, right? And so let's talk about this for a while. Like, what's happening at your school, or what are your thoughts on this about, thinking about school beyond a typical, 6 hour day or 7 hour day and like 6 periods?
So I could I could go off for hours about this. I'm going to take this in a different direction, and then I'll swing it back into the technology component.
Yep.
One of the things that I'm working incredibly hard at this year, and I'm writing grants with a bunch of University of Texas at El Paso professors. We've got like a whole crew of professors writing grants for this kind of overarching idea, is that here at the Eastside campus, we have this beautiful brand new facility, and I literally designed it with our architect in a radically different way in order to incorporate all these common spaces. And you're going to kind of see what I'm getting at in a second. So our dining hall doesn't look like a cafeteria. It looks like a college commons. There are several different common spaces across the campus when it's going to be finished, including this massive forum, which I'd love to show you. And one of these days we'll have our architect right on the show to show you this beautiful, very unique common space. The idea is that I want to have this brand new facility that looks radically different than any other school architecturally, designed for these common space applications to be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I got like an A team, which is, you know, our alpha team, or, you know, morning team, if you will. That's basically us, like your teachers, your administrators, everything else. We're here at 7. We're out of here at like 4:30, right? We got a omega team or evening team, which has like, you know, a coordinator, an after school program, tutors, everything else that are here from 4 to 7. The idea is that if you figure out a way to incorporate technology well, every kid here has a Chromebook. The idea is to use the technology to individualize the instruction for every single child, so that the kid takes the assessment on the computer. It understands exactly not only the state standards that they need to do, but all the learning gaps. So it'll show you, hey, listen, like they missed this 2nd grade standard, this 3rd grade standard. That's why they're unable to do this 7th grade math standard or this 8th grade English standard, because they have these gaps to fill in.
Yep.
Teachers always complain about, we never have this time, we have to teach the TEKS. And I'm like, what if we just started scratching the idea of the old school factory style of classes, which like you go to English class for an hour and then math class for an hour and all this other stuff. And I'm like, here's what we're going to do with our high school. We're going to develop this like kind of block schedule. It's kind of like a flex schedule, not exactly a block, but for our listeners, let's just say you got an hour and a half. I come into the classroom, you come into the classroom, you have your laptop, and you're just like, you know what you need to do. This is that second part about the student being in charge of their learning, right? Because it's all driven through the technology that we provided for the kid. It's like you come into the class and you're like, yo, here's what's up. I already know the things that I need to do. So why am I held hostage inside of this class, listening to a teacher friggin' lecture for an hour and a half, or doing these activities that aren't addressing my gaps? Nope. You check in, you go to one of our flex spaces, you grab your laptop, you grab your team, your 3 other teammates who are going to help you through it. And you're going to sit there and you're going to blast through all of these things that you need to personally help you. That is both technology driven and teacher designed. And the entire ideology of this is that they'll be in a common space where any adult in the building can help them out.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's the beauty of this entire endeavor. Is like, oh, you need crazy amounts of help? Well, your teacher knows that. They're going to provide you small group instruction. But you know what you need to do? You're good to go. You've got these gaps to fill, and like the technology on the computer can do that. Great. Why are you held hostage? Go out into the common area, use the technology, and blast past it. Because I'll tell you what, David, for a kid like me, who is horrible at math, I'd probably be in the math classroom for the hour and a half. But for a kid like me that was really good at English and social studies, I'd be out of there in 5 minutes. I'd finish all my English standards. I'd finish all my social studies homework. I'd finish my math homework. I'd finish all my other homework. And instead of sitting on my kitchen counter for 4 to 5 hours doing homework every single night, held hostage, deprived of like any time during the school day to do anything other than homework during school nights. I'm talking about, you were there 4 to 5 hours a night of homework. Now you've just given me my life back. I just finished my homework, and I can do after school clubs. I can do sports. I can do community service. I can go play with my friends. I can have a childhood. Like, that's what's up. And I think that is exactly the way that we're addressing not only the personalization component, not only the let the student be in charge of their own learning, but also this think outside the box. I'm like, fuck the box. And outside of it, I've recreated something radically different from a box altogether that all our students are taking part in. And it is giving them the power to completely take that box and burn it. So forget about thinking outside the box. We just burnt the box and created this incredible sphere, like an open world reality, to be like, here are the like very large scale like parameters, have at it. Because you know what operates like that? College. And you know what also operates like that? Rich prep schools. So we keep doubling down with these black and brown schools and low income schools. It's got to be like way more disciplined and structured, and like, you know, it looks more and more like jail. And I'm like, you're not doing this for the rich kids. So why don't we provide our kids the opportunity to do that? So that is what we're doing here, and that's like, yeah, man.
I'm gonna cut you off only because
Please, as you should.
Not only did you just like film your future El Paso Leadership Academy fundraising video, man. I mean, it's like, yeah, I think you so returning to the three basic pillars that are in this like USA Today piece, right, that we talked about. You talking about just literally a slice of the work that you do at your schools, right? It's deep. It's so deep. And I think at the same time, pandemic or no pandemic, you know, if we got you in a room talking with like educational leaders and superintendents and county superintendents and, you know, state education leaders, you'd scare 80% of them. They're just like, this guy's talking crazy. I'm like, but he's actually not. He's actually doing the work, right? And I think that just goes back to the earlier point of like people, you know, the big systems are here. They're like, you know, they're still, you know, if you looked at them, they're like, yeah, 80% of what we do was happening 100 years ago, right? And then you look at the El Paso Leadership Academies and other next gen schools and innovative schools, and they're pushing the envelope, right? And it's also very different work, right? It's very different work. But yeah, that's pretty fascinating. And I think the other thing too, just to like back up and you know, provide one kind of nugget of benefit. There's two nuggets of benefits in doing like innovative, personalized schools or learning environments, is that we know that when education and when systems and when teachers are centered around children in a certain way, personalized to their particular needs, that benefits Black and brown children, right? When Black and brown children are in large systems and are kind of, they're basically a number, right? That doesn't work for them, right? And we know that. The second piece is
for anybody, dude.
It doesn't work for, yeah, I mean, it can work for some kids that are just like, you know, like quote unquote doing time in the system, right? Because they have the whatever other background stuff. But the second piece is like when you relinquish the controls of moving away from a, you know, lecture based, everybody gets the same thing system, you can actually help two groups of students. You help, you know, you can help all students, but you help students that need deeper support and personalization, you know, that may not be able to access, you know, particular like grade level content or curriculum. And then you also help students on the other end that are ready for advancement, right? And advanced learning, right? Because then they can like go on and like explore, you know, new work going forward, right? So you're actually helping the, you know, a larger spectrum, right? But again, for traditional educators, opening up that box is, you know, it could be a scary thing, right? Because you're opening up a box. That's what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just that I think folks are very scared, because the intimidation comes from, that sounds like a really great idea, but we have no idea what it takes to actually implement that. So what we're going to do is just run away. And then what we're going to do, instead of asking you, which has been my experience in education, instead of asking you how you're doing this and how we can work together to develop this and how to combine resources in order to manifest this idea, it has been met with constant criticism and bombardment and like assumption, which to me is the demonstration of like a troglodyte mentality. And I mean that like through and through, meaning smart people with some courage would be like, that's dope. How, like, can we talk about this? How do you develop on doing that? How do you scaffold that? What can we partner on this? How do we build this together? I want that in my school. I'd love that for every school, but like, man, that sounds really complex. How do we do this? Instead, it's met with, that's never going to work. I've been in this business for 30 years and that's never going to work. And it's like, you've been failing fucking kids for 30 years, you fucking flunky. I'm making it work.
Yeah.
So I've been in the charter school biz for 7 years and I'm doing something you didn't accomplish in 50. What does that tell you about you? And that is the problem, is that, in my opinion, too many administrators and too many know-it-alls, because fucking educators at times act like know-it-alls. They're not these research-based individuals who look at an issue and be like, whoa, let's ask a lot of questions. Let's question our previous assumptions. Let's not jump to conclusions. Like, let's maybe take a moment to figure out and find out how this could actually work, because this could be fun and fascinating and relevant. That is what I would love to see and what I would love to have happen. But unfortunately, what I've seen is that's too difficult. That's never going to work. You don't know these kids. You don't know these communities.
Oh my goodness.
And
that's
beauty.
You're triggering me now.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And the beauty of the El Paso Leadership Academy and why I feel so emphatic about it was that this isn't just a school and this isn't just a place where we're, trying all these new things. What it is a enormous piece of proof to be like, all the shit that you think that these kids couldn't do, they're doing it and better. All the curricular ideologies you thought could never work in a school, least of all for low-income Latino kids, holy shit, is it working?
Yeah, man.
All these crazy concepts, and you think that I'm some like bonkers Willy Wonka who doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. We've done it. It's being implemented and it's being discussed currently in Harvard classrooms, being like, I'm sorry, what's happening there? This theory that we're talking about, someone's actually implementing it. Oh, you're ranked #1 in the state of Texas for academic gains, so you're not bullshitting? This is where it gets to, and this kind of comes full circle, David, into the conversation of these are the critical things that we need to do to transcend education. But where is the human capital, the courage, and the cognizance of our leadership to actually begin moving forward with it? Because I want that world, not the world where I have a bunch of myopic, troglodyte fuckers telling me what can't be done, and I'm sitting here flat out proving them wrong.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me feel better that I'm proving them wrong. It would make me feel better if they were like, cool, can we do this in our school?
Right. And that's the whole idea, or what the original concept behind like charter schools or like lab schools, right? It's like, give us a little bit of flexibility, give us a little bit of autonomy, see what we can do, and then let's figure out how to incorporate that into the larger systems that serve, 80% of the kids, right?
That's exactly.
And I think, so going with the theme of what we're talking about today, I think, like emerging from the pandemic, time to transform public education. I would add the statement that I think it's really time to look at, not just charter, but probably, a good percentage of charter schools and districts that have been doing innovative work and that have results for kids, right? It's not, I wouldn't say it's not rocket science. Like, there's proven models out there. Sure, you need humans to run these systems, right? But there's documentation out there, and people have been doing this work for 15, 20, 30 years, right?
Right. Exactly.
And where it's successful, it helps all kids, and where it's really successful, it helps, Black and brown children who are the furthest from opportunity. And I think that's a good food
and
for
I look,
thoughts.
I will say this, like, shout out to the public charter schools that are doing this like cool and innovative work. Shout out to like the Long Beach ISDs and some of the Dallas schools that are doing some crazy cool innovative work. Guys, this is happening, and it is happening in district schools. It's happening in public charter schools. The problem is that those of us with highly innovative ideas are going against an army of inertia. These folks who are just like, it's always been done this way. And I'm like, it's always been done in this like horseshit way that's not produced any results. So like, we're going to keep doing this way. Well, this will never work with our kids. And I'm like, it's working in Dallas, and it's working in Long Beach, and it's working in San Diego, and it's happening in these pockets. And I got to tell you, like, one of the things that I envision happening is like, how do we get these people together, and how do we combine forces like Voltron to start hammering out these things and disseminating them? So it's not just some nonprofit called Transcend. It's a consortium of public school teachers and administrators and charter folks getting together and finally having this narrative and discussing it and producing it. Because what's going on is that we're too damn competitive. Oh, well, we got to compete with the charter schools, so we got to keep these like really cool things bottled up. Or the charter schools are like, man, we're competing with everybody else. We got to keep these things bottled up so that they'll come to us. And I'm just like, that's not our role.
Yeah, no, open source,
that is not our role.
Open
Absolutely.
Source, share the code, right?
Yeah, this should not be this competitive corporate situation. Those days need to be done. It should be, as you said, a complete open source so that we are spreading this out. Speaking of which, like, that's our goal at the South Star Classroom. We are not just a show, ladies and gentlemen. The show is a vehicle for the consulting support to bring these things to your school. So you should contact us and let us know how we can support you, because we're not just talk, we are doing it. And like David has done it, I am doing it. David is continuously doing it at a large scale now with like district leaders, which is killer. Which means this man knows how to do it across the district. Hire us. I said, call us. We'll help you out.
That's right. No, I mean, we have not only the years, but like, I think what's really important to consider is like, we have a strong track record, right? Like, you can look at student outcomes. I think a lot of times people, will be like, oh, this person's been doing the work for 20 years, 30 years. What are the outcomes? I mean, and they're not there, right? And I think, people like me, people like you, we can do two things at the same time. Like, we can innovate, we can do education differently, and we can also safeguard to make sure that our innovation is not like actually doing more harm to children. It's actually adding benefit to children in terms of learning outcomes for Black and brown kids. So it's like that, those two things have to happen at the same time. So I appreciate you for that. Yeah, interesting show today. Talking about this moment of coming out of the pandemic, and is it time to transform schools? I think what we came out with is like, people are all over the place. Also, like, where is the question of like leadership to actually do this work and drive it forward? And I think number three is how do you move these big systems? But however, you brought forward a couple of like Texas districts that are actually doing some innovative work. So kudos to them. I'm seeing some of that stuff come out of Texas, so that's good, and I'm happy for the kids that are in those systems. So with that, why don't you take us out in your closing thoughts, Omar, and then you can close us out, brother.
I mean, I think that my ultimate thought about everything when it comes to transcendent education is that this is long overdue. We have been doing this in pockets for a very long time, but unfortunately, what has happened is that not only have we not gotten together to support one another, but these naysayers that I was speaking out earlier are not just, like, when I say troglodytes and myopic, boy, that's a nice way to saying they will purposely go out of their way to stampede over you to make sure that they don't look bad. These are bad people. These are bad actors in an overwhelmingly corrupt and bad system.
Yep.
I don't trust them. I don't like them. And the problem is that those of us who are doing incredible good to transcend education need to find one another and support one another and help each other implement these practices to prove to parents and kids that it can happen, because that's the army that not only should we be supporting, but that should be supporting us in this work.
Yep.
We're getting this wrong if we keep thinking that the Davids and Omars of the world are going to consistently be able to fight the armies of cynicism.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a fight that we are fighting, but it is ultimately one that we need an incredible amount of support with. So we are open and happy to helping implement these practices in your schools, in your districts, in your areas. But it's not just that we are asking for your support. If you want to transcend education, it starts with the people, the support of the people, the belief of the people, the administrators who have these beliefs, and then your support of those administrators to actually help them through the rough times of implementing these things, because it is rough. And the difficulty of implementing transcendent educational practices is that you're having to train the teachers and the administrators and everybody else how to do it. And it's an incredibly hard piece of work that everyone runs away from, but it is worth it.
Yep.
So in that respect, if you want to transcend education, you've got to transcend people and support them to make sure that they have a transcendental moment and that they change their view so that you're not doing it alone. And those are my final thoughts.
Boom. Dang. It sounds like content for the next 10 shows there, right? I get it.
I mean, I hope
take some
so.
notes. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, man.
All right. Cool.
Lead us up from Big Bear, California.
Yeah, let's do it. Had some tech issues, but we got it worked out. Thanks everybody for joining us. Common Grounds of Self-Determination. I want to thank Dr. Charles Cole for making a cameo earlier today. And always thank you to my brother Omar for doing the work that you do with kids in Texas and El Paso. We'll be back next week. So thank you for joining, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.